Hey World Changers, it's Pastor Wes, and welcome to the last day of this week with Real with Wes. And what we've been talking about all week is healing for the soul. Man, it is God's will for your soul to be prosperous. It's really prosperous. Let me take that for a moment. It's to be successful, is what it means. For you to succeed and to thrive in your thinking, no matter what you're facing, no matter what the odds are, no matter if it's the virus we're facing right now, no matter the pain or the hurt, God's will for you is you to thrive in those things. You are not stuck where you are right now with the thoughts you have right now if they're negative. You're not stuck in grief and depression. And it's not putting shame when I say that on people. It's saying there's a way out. There's a way of hope. And that way out is through God. And what God does is, as we talked about this past week, we talked about yesterday a lot, he comes in and he starts rewiring your thinking is what he does. Not like some crazy, magical thing. No, he starts inserting different thoughts to get you to change how you look at things, to change your perception. And it starts with, like we talked about yesterday, going before God and say, God, man, I need you. I can't do this on my own. I can't resist the pressure I'm feeling 24/7 right now. I can't resist the financial pressure because I don't know how I'm going to feed my family next week. I can't take one more argument with my spouse because we're locked in together and we can't walk outside right now and we're ready just to choke each other at the moment. And don't do that, by the way. I encourage you. But it's when you're feeling that is what you're doing. And that pressure's there. I mean, man, I got pressure on me. Everybody has pressure that's in this situation right now, especially if you live in the tri-state area. It is like blaring here like crazy is what it is. And that taxes your soul. That tries to bring you to a place of depression, of fear, of hurt when a loved one goes home right now, because I'm sure there's a lot of people experiencing grief in loved ones. I've had loved ones go home due to this COVID-19 thing going on. And what that wants to do is consume your world is what it wants to do. And God is saying, man, with me and you having a relationship with you, I have a way of defending that. I have a way of resisting that. I have a way of fighting that where it doesn't consume your world, that you can come out on the other side of this thing and still maintain this mental health. More than anything that Satan wants to do right now with fear is crush people mentally. Is crush people through hurt. Crush people through panic is what he wants to do and condition us. Everything right now, pain, hear this clearly, okay? Pain is trying to condition your mindset. Pain is trying to condition your thinking. And I'm talking about physical pain. That can do it too. I'm talking about the emotional pain. We're dealing with the internal things right now. It's trying to condition your decision making is what it's trying to do. So it's trying to shape your world. It's trying to shape your destination. And that's the opposite, because God says, you know what? Through Jesus, I can shape your world, and I've already have a plan in place for you, and it's not for bad things. It's only for good things. So we talked about this week, we established the will of God. We established who we identify with. We established the difference of seeing versus believing, believing in Jesus and operating by what we believe in Jesus instead of what our natural senses seem. And then we established yesterday, man, is going to God and allowing God to lead you and guide you through all these things. So that's his part. That's the will of God. What part do we play? You've got to allow God to renew your mind. That's what you got to do. You got to allow God to change your way of thinking. So let me read this scripture we're getting into. Romans 12, verse 1 and 2. It says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because all he has done for you. Let them be a living and a holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable." What does that mean? This is truly the way to worship God. It's honoring God. It's making a quality decision to say, I'm going to honor God with my thinking, with my emotions, with my decisions, because of all his goodness, because of all of Jesus has done for me. Man, I can't help but want to live for him. And that floods your thinking, that floods your mindset is what it does. And then, so here's part 2, verse 2, it says, "Don't copy the behaviors and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person," catch this, "by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good, pleasing, and perfect." So let's break that down for a moment, because that was a mouthful. Don't copy the behaviors and customs of this world. People automatically think, well, don't do sin, don't sleep around, don't get drunk, don't, do a bunch of weed and drugs and things like that. And there's a level of truth to that, but that's not the main point and emphasis I want to make in what we're talking about this week. the real important part more than those things is don't copy the way of thinking. Don't copy the way of feeling. Don't copy the way of flowing with the tone, as they say. With the world system is what we don't want to do. We don't want to maintain that same and conditioning right there. We have to make a decision to allow God to condition us to respond correctly, to position us in a place of strength to keep emotional stability. But that starts with allowing God to change how you see things, change your perception. Your perception is everything. Man, when God starts changing your thinking, you're going to see things different. You're going to see your spouse you don't like right now. You're going to see him as a whole different person. You're going to find out they're a beautiful, wonderful person, and that although you don't have a perfect marriage, that you have a God put together marriage, and you're just learning how to get along with each other and grow together, because love is not some instant magic switch that just happens. It's a growing process. It's a lifetime. You're going to see your kids differently. They're not these annoying little brats running around the house, as much as they may drive you crazy some days. And I'm a dad, and my son can be high-strung sometimes, and he's an awesome kid, but it's how you look at it. You know, it's like, oh my God, they did this again and made this mess. Now we all got to go clean it up. And it puts you in a different position, though, when you're thinking different. When those things happen, you respond differently. Man, you know, some of us are working home remotely, and it's like, man, I am so tired of trying to remotely do my job with these people. And it's frustrating. You may be dealing with that at home is what you're dealing with. And like trying to do what would be easy just to walk down the hallway and do that at work. You're trying to figure out how to do it and do, business calls over the phone and laptop and things like that. And it can be very frustrating and stressful. Allow God to change your way of thinking. See, your trouble does not have to determine your life. Your grief does not have to determine your life, but it comes with God changing your thinking and allowing Him to change your thinking. Because then that last part, which is so, so important, what happens? You see God's will clearly for your life, which is good, pleasing, and perfect is what you see. You see His overall will for your life. And when you know God's will, you can move with confidence, you can have faith in that, and you can see it come out in your life. And you know what happens? It brings healing to your soul. See, one of the other things I feel the need to point out right now, one of the things that can be detrimental and painful to the soul is the unknowing. As when you feel lost and you're confused. And some of you are sitting at home right now and you're like, I'm lost. I don't know where to go through in life. I don't know what's up and down, man. But when you allow God to start shifting your thinking, He reveals purpose. And that purpose brings energy and life. It brings a thing to get up again today, a drive. And it's like, man, I know I'm at home sitting right now, but either God's leading me day in and day out how to do what I got to do today, but then He's also prepping me for when I come out of this, because we will come out of this, and we are coming out of this, what's next in life. And while you're sitting there and everything's going on, you can allow God to rebuild you on the inside. You can allow God to heal you in some areas on the inside is what He can do. You can allow God to remove some fears, because God did not intend for us to live under fear at all. And you can come back and just relax. And you can mentally rest in the arms of God and His love for you. And that's what it's going to bring you to. As you allow God to unpack these things, what I encourage you with and sit before Him and change your thinking, enter into rest. Enter into mental rest. That doesn't mean we don't do anything, but you're resting from anxiety. You're resting from worry. You're resting from the pain in your head. You're resting from the grief. You're resting from the depression. Why? Because you know God's will, and that will activates other things on the inside of you, which is joy, which is hope, which is love, and which is peace, man. I appreciate you guys tuning in with me all week. I hope it's helped you out. I encourage you to go back if you haven't heard the previous ones this week and listen to them start to finish. Meditate them on a few times again and again, and just go before God. Allow God to unpack things in your mind and experience good mental health with peace. Love you guys, and I'll see you next week.